felt this full in a long time, and we ain't even started the conversation yet.
All right.
You know what I mean? So can we get all our poets to come back to the stage?
Okay, poet.
So first of all, thank y'all. That was amazing. I am always a fan of work that is honest and true. And the first question we're going to start out with, and I'm going to let whoever wants to answer first take that answer, and then we can follow through. And we have one mic, so we got one mic. How have you learned to show up as yourself?
Good question.
I would take credit.
So one way I learned to show up for myself is by removing myself from a lot of shit. I have no problem being the cousin that doesn't come around.
Yeah.
I have no problem being the friend that doesn't text back. I have no problem being the person that you see and it's hard to get a hold of. It's for a reason, because shit is hard. And that's how I show up for myself, by not only establishing boundaries, but reinforcing them. Even if it makes people feel uncomfortable, that's okay. At the end of the day, people have boundaries as well. So I'm no stranger to someone living life and going through shit. I'm not expecting anybody to do anything that I wouldn't do, or I'm not expecting everybody to do things that I would do. Showing up for myself sometimes just means staying quiet in situations. Sometimes it means screaming loud in situations. A big part of showing up for myself is giving my anger a place to be. I understand my anger. I love my anger so much because it shows me when I am not being treated correctly. So I let it be. I let it breathe. I don't try to hold it in. I let it go as rampant as possible. And I think that anger gets shits done. An angry RADI is a very productive RADI. I don't know why. So that's the way of showing up for myself as well. It may not be treated with love and welcoming from everyone, but that's what I need to do for me.
Personally, I love challenging narratives and doing research. Part of my own personal trauma around my identity was being told you can't be black and gay. And so I remember growing up really believing that. And then I had to go and read and learn about all these different ways that sexuality and gender identity has so much variance throughout the ages. It wasn't until we got into this bubble that we had this Eurocentric view of how we should be navigating as a community. And so showing up for myself is telling them to shut the fuck up about those things and really offering a different narrative to my community. And I'll end with this. A lot of times when we have people who are close to us who may share an opinion of us that is detrimental of our well-being, we treat that as the gospel truth. But a mentor of mine, really challenged me and was like, what makes them an expert on you? Like, I don't care if they birthed you, they don't know you. Like, they still gotta go through the process of knowing who you are, and that doesn't give them the right to tell you who you are.
Absolutely. Yeah, just like Roddy said, learning to love from a distance, that concept changed the way I show up for myself, and knowing that, like, these niggas don't know what the fuck they talking about, and that, but they be so confident. You know what I'm saying? Like, they really try to convince you that they know better for you than you do. And I think along with all of that, for me, what really helps me, and what helps me show up for myself is kind of divorcing my self-perception and the conversation I have with myself in my head. That critic or that parent that we develop for ourselves. Like, stop trying to be perfect like that. I think because I grew up in church and around the gaze of a lot of people and a lot of that performativity, and growing up told to be like Christ, and no disrespect to any Christians or anything like that. I think there is like healthy ways to be Christian. I was not raised around that. I was raised very much around like, you ain't shit without Christ. You know what I'm saying? And so in my mind and growing up, I was always just like critiquing myself and analyzing myself and being really harsh. And I just learned that I'm good just as I am, flaws and all, and that everyone is like, there's no good reason to hate yourself, basically, and really like reminding myself of that every time I start kicking myself or start being really hard on myself. That enables me to show up to places and be like, yo, I don't care if y'all like me. There's good reasons to hate me. There's good reasons to love me. You know what I'm saying? Like, just like all of us. And that makes me human. And that makes me alive. I don't want to be perfect. You know, I want to be real. And yeah, I'm reminding myself that in every moment. Even in this one, where I'm like, oh, I'm in front of a bunch of people who don't know. So yeah.
Thank you. So as we are talking about, you know, how you show up for yourself in that, how do the things that are most important in your identity shape that, right? Like, and I don't want to make assumptions, but we are here off the basis of queerness in some way. But also those other things that define you as an individual, how does that influence the way that you show up in all of your spaces? So I think a lot of the shared things we talked about was church, right? Other things in which our queerness or other things show up as and work in those places, how do you ensure, even as an artist, that those things are also being represented? Like, how does that show up?
For me, it's community. Like, being surrounded with people who share those identities and who share those lived experiences, and even like with the allies who do, like, that's what gives me life. Like, I'm of the opinion that you can't really know yourself outside of community. And so, you know, being around other queer folk, other like GNC folk, and just understanding that, like, understanding that the people in my life that I've learned, that I was told to depend on their love, whether that be your parents or, you know, certain mentors in your life, learning that it's okay that they can't nurture every part of me. I can find people who can, and who are doing that, and who can hold me, and who can support me, and who can love me through all that type of stuff, and also inspire me, and who are more confident in their identities than I am, you know, because in a lot of ways I'm still like a baby in a lot of areas, but it's like seeing people who are bold and like really living in their truth just gives me permission to do the same. And so community has by far been the biggest part of that for me.
I'll say that I'm of the personal opinion that my community is deeply traumatized, and as am I. And so, as a person who seeks healing, I recognize that being amongst people who are deeply traumatized, who may be on various different levels of their healing journey, that I have to be wary and cautious of even navigating with my own people. Because sometimes, I think this is my personal story, I can't talk for everyone else. My personal story is that I believe that if certain parts of my identity was not persecuted, I wouldn't be talking about them as much, right? But it's because of the persecution that I have to put on this particular battle on me and things like that. And so what I recognize is that the battle is important, and the battle is the battle, but it's not who I am at the end of it, right? And so I think sometimes when we're in this fight with all the various different identities that we have, we do wear it on our sleeve as like this trigger, this trauma response. And I'm just trying to urge people like, yo, you know those things that you liked when you was a child? You still like them. Yeah. Like those are things that still resonate and commune with you. And so I want people to get back to that experience.
Okay, you gotta repeat the question for me. Because I can just ramble on about some things, but I want to know what I'm talking about, what I'm doing.
I respect that, yo.
Yeah. Because I'll just start saying some shit.
So let me remember how I had worded it when I had asked you the first time. So we talked about like what our wholeness is and what it is like to show up for ourselves.
Yeah.
But how does our sexuality, our race, those other things play into it, right? Like, because we are black women, but black women who are queer in the church, or
Yes.
black men who are queer in the church, or at work, or in the barbershop, right? Like, so how do we show up through those various situations individually? Like, what is your personal perspective?
Well, for one, I hate that our race gender, sexuality, all these things that we have such a big effect of how we are treated in this country. But that's the way it is, so it has to play a part in your wholeness. Whether you want to acknowledge it or not, it does, because it dictates how you are treated, how you're viewed, and how you move through this world. One thing that I would say, for me, not only is it finding a community, which it is, finding and creating your own community. Not really finding one, but creating one, building one. It does start with a little bit of, I'm a big fan of isolation. I'm a big fan of solitude. I think that at some point, it can be very addicting, the peace that it is to just be within yourself and to learn the God within you. However, when you are out there and you're in these communities, don't forget to find a corner and carve it out for yourself.
Yes.
And not a corner of a community that is stationary. Something that can stretch and grow with you. Take up as much space as possible, even if it's fearful, and it's going to be fearful, right? Like it's afraid to be your amazingly gay self in church. I've heard. I don't know. As I said, I don't know a lot about that place, you know. But just being able to stand in these communities and be in communities where people are very different from you. They may love you for one thing that you have in common, but they are very different. Everybody has their own life, everybody has their own experiences. Making sure your experiences stand is a room for them. And nobody, I'm not gonna say no one, maybe in this community, people will create that space and give you that space. But even if they don't give you enough space, take up more.
Yes.
If you are big, be big, and we are big. No matter what, if you are a person with melanin, you are big. Your ancestors in you, their spirit is big. You can't shrink yourself in any situation. And when you do that, you're doing yourself a disservice. You're doing your community a disservice as well. You're awesome, you're fucking gorgeous, you're beautiful inside and out. Your community can benefit from that, and you benefit from it every single day.
Yes, we are big. We are big. And I think that we move in systems so many times that make us want to shrink down because that's what's appropriate. But we weren't born to be appropriate. We were born to heal and move forward and liberate our people. So we'll have to move in appropriateness. I appreciate that. Yeah, for sure. So the next question is your healing. You know, I think I'm hearing a lot in the works that you all have provided, as well as what you've said so far, that there's a level of intentional healing that is taking place. How do you protect that healing, right? With all of the things that are going on, and make sure that it is reflected in the work that you do? Super easy question. Take your time.
How do I protect my healing?
How do you protect your healing?
All right, I'll ramble first. Let's see. The first thing I want to say is this is something I keep with me. Healed people hear differently. So I would love for people to ponder and resonate on that particular statement. Because I found it so true in my day-to-day life, like, because I'm navigating with my community.
Say it again.
Healed people hear differently.
That's so important.
And so, in the midst of protecting a healing space, I think people forget what inner community is, and what I mean by inner community is your close circle, right? There's a lot of people who get into the healing work, quote unquote. I'm going to speak specifically for Black people as well as for Black, same gender loving, gender diversity, whatever else. People who get into this work who actually don't like the community that they're serving. And so when they do that, because they're fighting for, you know, the right things, right? But they haven't been taught how to navigate with their community. They haven't been taught how to forgive their community, haven't been taught how to love on their community, how to put their people in context, right? And that's still something, I'm gonna be real clear, that's still something I gotta do every day. I gotta put my people in context when you're out here doing this work. And so the peace building part, I think, is making sure that you have your close circle of friends that you do have as your accountability partners, right? Make sure that when you're going out to do any kind of work in your community, whatever else, that you have people who can check you. And equally, you will check them as well, right? There's group chats that I'm in where if I share a certain meme, people gonna be like, yo, that wasn't funny. That wasn't, and I'll be like, I thought, and you know, but we need those kinds of moments. We need those kinds of moments in order to make peace happen. But I'm done. We're good.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think along with that, what Duke was just saying is like, surrounding yourself with people who are also doing that work. Because what's happened for me is that, you know, when you grow up in an environment where people are just kind of raw dogging life without therapy, without any sort of, they're just kind of going through it, they're being impacted by traumas and by things that are not even like on their consciousness. And then once you become aware of that and you start doing that work, once I became aware of that and I started doing that work, I became a target for a lot of people. And I became threatening to a lot of people because they feel like, if you're doing that, why can't I?
Yes.
And by shutting you down and by reminding you, you know, and bringing you back into this toxic place, I am really soothing my own identity, my self-identity, and being like, oh, well, you know, it's impossible, or change and healing is impossible, so I don't have to do any extra work with that. So I would say surrounding myself with people who are also doing that work, who are intentional, like about accountability and honesty and transformative justice and making space for like your fullness of your humanity has been a saving grace for me and it helped me protect my healing journey. And I would also say like, sometimes I gotta protect my healing journey from myself because I be having these like unrealistic expectations about what healing looks like and what the journey actually is. Like this shit ain't sweet, bro. Like this shit is difficult and it's daily work and there's no destination. You know, it's like we're constantly arriving at these better places of ourselves. And so it is both the most rewarding journey I think you can go on and also just the most challenging one. And so really sitting with myself and being like, okay, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. You know, I gotta pace myself. I gotta make sure I'm not burning out because you can burn out with self-work as well. And so really understanding that like, you know, pacing yourself and taking care of yourself along that healing journey. How I protect it, for sure.
Absolutely.
Okay, so like, trauma fucks you up, and then you heal, and people just say that, you know, healing is great, but sometimes some parts of healing will fuck you up too. And again, it's learning that and accepting that and still being able to do it, right? So for me, I feel like there's a movement where a lot of people are healing, a lot of people are figuring out, hey, you know, something isn't right. There's a pain here, I don't know where this pain is, and they dig, they find a womb, and then they're ready to heal. So I love that there are so many people in my community that are doing that, but there's a cumbersome amount of the people that I love who are not healing because they haven't even acknowledged that there is a wound there. So, and when I say this, I'm saying, I can go back to traumatic experience in my childhood and pinpoint the person who did this thing, right? And in my course of healing, it's not that I want to talk to them about how they've done something to me, because, you know, I would love to, but maybe that won't happen. But it's also figuring out and listening to them and noticing they fucked up too. And they don't know it. And I think a lot of people don't acknowledge that. And I'm just going to speak for myself personally. It took me a while to realize that a lot of the things that were traumatic in my mother's and my grandmother's life and my father's and my grandfather's life, they don't know it was traumatic. They have no idea that fucked them up. So it's like when they do something or when they think or say something extremely ignorant. And now, you know, when we say something ignorant, there's always a laugh coming, right? Like, that's what we're used to. We're used to that being comedy. And I'll laugh, but then I'll stop and I'll ask, why do you think like that? Like, where did that start? This belief, right? This notion that you have. Where did that start? And there's always some fucked up little story they got to go with it as to why that happens. And I want them, it's not even the story that I need to hear from me. I want them to understand that they're saying these words right now. Like, do you hear what you're saying, and do you know that that was not supposed to happen? Or you were not supposed to go through that, or you didn't deserve to go through that. There was a better way to do that. I know this is the way that you were taught, but there were so many other ways. And you're not wrong for going through it. You're not the bad person for going through it, but it's just exposing, hey, there's a wound here. You decide if you're gonna heal or not. I can't force you, but there's a wound here. And that can be very frustrating when doing that with older generations. Another way I protect it is by doing it even more vigorous for my younger generation. There's certain shit that I went through, you are not gonna put my little sister through. You are not gonna put my little brother through. You are not gonna put my niece and nephew through. They aren't going to learn to unlearn this bullshit like I had to learn. So protecting peace was just not just surrounding myself by people who were healing, but tapping people who I love and saying, you're not healing because you don't know you hurt. That's where you fucked up. You gotta fix that part right there.
Yes, yo, I'm about to write a whole song. I'm a credit y'all, but. So as we are talking about healing and our personal journeys in healing and the healing that you have to do when you're responsible for holding accountable the people that led you to need to heal. What were some of that? Write that down too. Okay,
It's on camera, right? It's on camera? Everything on camera?
So, as you were sort of matriculating through this and continue to, what were, I know I use it whenever I can, matriculate, you know what I'm saying? Like, from the upstairs to the downstairs, I'm matriculating. What were some of the roadblocks that you experienced? What were some of your personal roadblocks in your healing that led you to the space of growth? If you are comfortable with sharing.
I want to start with this. In my act of healing, one of the things that I didn't know that I was going to do was the grief of detachment. Like, not only detaching from people who are fucked up, but also grieving them. Like, even though you're a person, right? You're not a terrible person, but you've done some terrible things, and it's like, I shouldn't miss you, but I miss the fuck out of you. And that's something, right? And then it's also, it was a part I was going to. See, I was so ready for it, guys. You saw it, I was built up and everything. Oh, I really lost it. That really lost it.
It's gonna come back.
It's gonna come back. It gotta come back. No, I lost it. You gotta come back. We're gonna finish. Yep,
Grief though, grief. You talking about grief in here.
Yep, that was.
So one of my personal roadblocks is something that I'm working more diligently on right now. So shout out to Kenneth Something and a poet named Nate, because they hosted a writing workshop here not too long ago with Ebony Stewart and Gail Danley. What I'm about to say is something that I was aware of briefly, and I think that happens a lot of times in our healing too. Like, we are aware of something, but we don't make the agenda to actually work on it at that point. And so it came back up during this workshop, and it is the question of where do you store the pain in your body, right? And so for me, putting myself on it, as an example, I know that one of the pains that I have is of grief if someone happens to pass, of death and detachment, as you mentioned. I store it in my belly. And what that looks like for me is I can be completely full, but I'm still eating, like in order to try to consume or fill a space in those moments, right? Another example for me is that if I happen to have something that's really on my mind, like I know I should be saying it, but I won't say it, it gets stored in my heart. And I had hypertension for years. And it wasn't until I started speaking up more intently as a poet that that hypertension started to go away, right? And so it's like, I want to be clear that what I'm speaking of is old magic, one. But two, it looks different for everybody, right? So for me, I can process where I find the grief or pain in my body through writing. But for others, it could be dance or yoga or running, whatever else. I think people should be looking more intently at what activities really helps them process their body. I can't stress this enough. We're dealing a lot with mental health and things right now, right? Important, it is the work, it is what controls everything. But people forget that the body is really a huge part of how we navigate in the society. Your body feels that exact same kind of pain, right? And if you're not doing anything to heal your body, you're not getting massages, manicures, pedicures, taking a bath, like, you are setting yourself up for failure in a roadblock to your healing.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely.
That was a good answer.
Facts. Yeah, I'm still hung up on the grief. Like you definitely hit something there.
I remember my second part too.
Why is that? Why is that? Why you got it?
You sure?
Yeah.
So like, it was also acknowledging when I wasn't healing, there were parts of me that wasn't just hurt, but I was also a fucked up person as well, right? In the act of healing, I realized that I missed certain parts of me that were fucked up. That was a roadblock. I missed the part of me that, like, she was fucked up, but she made money. She was fucked up, but she got shit done. She was fucked up, but she didn't cry as much, you know? Like, she was fucked up, but she had a lot of fun. And she met a lot of people, and it's like, damn, I'm gonna miss that part of me too. So it's like, the healing is knowing that although you're gonna miss those parts, it's so much, it's a lot more fun on the other side of it too, right? Like, the heal part, you can get shit done and all of that. Huh? No, I never. And it's also acknowledging that, like, another roadblock is the things people don't tell you about healing, and it could be something big and it could be something really small. Like, healing will fuck your memory up. Just like trauma fucks your memory up. Healing does as well. You'll heal and you'll forget some shit, like, and you'll forget moments in life. You'll forget a certain year, and it's a roadblock until it comes back, right? I don't believe that time is linear. I do believe that time is a spiral, so certain ages line up. So I think that at certain times you remember certain ages of your life. And when you get older, you remember other certain parts of your life. It just spirals around, but those are definitely roadblocks. It's knowing that what you're leaving behind is quote unquote bad, which really isn't. There's nothing that is good or bad, it just is, right? But there are things that you're leaving behind because it weighed heavy and you want to move on in a lighter life. But some of those things that you leave behind, although they may be traumatic or, you know, quote unquote bad, you miss the fuck out of them sometimes. Yeah. You do. Woo!
I have nothing poetic to say on this subject, but in the spirit of vulnerability, like, I'll just keep it real. I think I have been my own roadblock in my healing process. I think, obviously, carrying all these identities that are victimized, and some of which that are, have social power and social currency. But specifically thinking about the ways and the things that I've been through that are unfair, that I didn't deserve, I grew up doing a lot of blaming. It was because, my daddy did this. It was because, capitalism and white supremacy, or if I wasn't this, or if this didn't happen to me, then X, Y, and Z. And I think what that did was breed a lot of shame in me. And that is something that I deeply struggle with, and that I feel as though I'm not one of those people that there's a sentiment out there that, like, we don't have enough shame as a society. You ever hear that? With like, we need to bring shame back. And it's like, no, nigga, shame is winning. Shame is, like, victorious right now. And I think, personally, I know some people don't agree with this, but I genuinely feel like shame is an obstacle to healing in every area. Because guilt is one thing. Guilt acknowledges, hey, I did something that I feel was wrong, or that I stepped outside of my character, X, Y, and Z. That can point you towards somewhere you want to be, the person you want to be in healing and growth. But shame just says, I am a mistake. I am fucked up. I'm not worthy of growth. I'm not worthy of healing. And who wants to heal if you feel like shit? Like if you're not worthy of that. And so I feel like in terms of being an obstacle, I really had to. And again, this is like ongoing work, y'all. Like this is I'm not over this particular hill, and may never be. But I'm telling you, like changing the narrative for myself in terms of what I do deserve. And being like, yo, like I may be fucked up, but I ain't no more fucked up than any one of you motherfuckers, you know what I'm saying? Like that has helped me overcome that a little bit more. But
Kendrick. You fucked up.
y'all got us, then we gonna be alright. That's it right there.
Don't drop it. Kenneth gotta pay for it if you drop it. Yo, mix.
Black people continuously dying, and I'm seeing the videography of it. And so, as someone who works in community, you're expected to have answers and talk and whatnot else, and I just couldn't talk during that time, right? I felt like, and even in the moments that I did not have someone that could listen to me, right? And so, I had got to the point where I was crossing streets without looking both ways. Anybody who knows me knows that I'm a homebody. I was out every day of the week during that time. And it was not healthy for me, what my healthy looks like. And so, thankfully, I recall that there was a therapist who was just somewhat accessible in the community. She was just someone who would show up to open mics all the time, and she would offer her services to people for free. Mama Rose, and I called her up just to get her to listen to me, and that was like my initiation into the healing thing. I don't know if there was I don't know what made me different than someone else who who wound up dead taking their life. I don't know what made me different in that capacity, but I believe it is when you are in spaces where genuine love does occur and is offered, you have more opportunities to accept that love. And so, just to urge for people who are healers in the room, people who do want to be healers, make sure that you are taking up the space as a healer, letting people know what you can do and what you can offer. And I think that's the road.
I actually have two moments I remember clear as fucking day. The first one was in high school. I never forget it. I did this like program in my high school that took you overseas. You get to do a study abroad program. And stepping out of America as a child, it was such an eye-opener. You learn that a lot of the bullshit you're going through is bullshit here. They don't know nothing about that bullshit over there. They got their own flavor of bullshit, but it's not what you're going through here. So when I came back, it was senior year, and everybody, senior ditch day. My boy was throwing a senior ditch day party. And I just said, you know what, tonight, I love to dance, and tonight, that night, I just wanted to dance, right? I just wanted to dance, and I said, you know what, I'm gonna challenge myself tonight. Literally, sit in my room. I'm gonna pretend to not give a fuck what people think or say about me at all for one night. I just want to see if I can do it. Anytime that I'm stopping myself from moving a certain way because I'm afraid of what somebody may say or how I may be looking in this person's eyes, I'm going to completely throw that out and do exactly what I want to do. It was the best fucking party I went to. I was dancing my ass off, right? Don't let the body fool you. This motherfucker light on her feet, man. And it was so much fun, and it was a while I was like, okay, I had did the whole, it was basically a fake it till you make it. It was so long that I was pretending to not care that at one point I woke up and I really didn't. I truly didn't care what the next person thought about me. I truly grasped the concept that whatever you think about me, whatever you feel about me, is none of my damn business. It's absolutely, whether you love me or hate me, you can share it with me all you like, but it's literally none of my business. And a second one was, COVID was an eye-opener for the world, if you ask me. Not only in the way of like, we notice how actually disgusting most humans are now, but when we were quarantined to our houses, everything, all the problems that we were trying to run away from was right in our bed with us. We couldn't get away from it, right? There was one point where I was trying to talk to my inner self and I couldn't remember my fucking voice. I was trying to like look inside of myself and I didn't remember what my face looked like. My inner voice looked like my dad. It spoke like my wife. It walked like my mother. Like it was all these people that I loved so much that I forgot where the fuck I was in myself. And I started doing things like, you know, I always see people do shit in the movies. Like you ever see the dramatic movie where they stand in the mirror and they drop that one little tear? It's real dramatic. It's real beautiful. And I'm like, that's some movie shit until I had to do it. I have to sit in the mirror for 20 minutes a day, and I did this every day. Just say something beautiful and positive about myself. Realize who I am, like really take and study my facial features. Remember my voice. And when I got to me again, the me that I got to was like, I just broke down crying. Like, it's like I ignored myself. It's like I didn't hear this part of me. It's like I was doing so many great things on the outside, you know, performing and all this other stuff. But this inner part of me, she was like, what the fuck about me? You're not doing this. You're not doing this for me. And I was like, I literally made like a promise to myself, like, I am so sorry. I'm going to do as much as I can for you right now. Whatever I can do, even if it's something small, something that may seem insignificant on the outside, I know it's going to mean so much to you on the inside, so we're just going to do it. Even if it's saying something, and I've never had a problem speaking highly of myself to myself, but I'm going to do it even more now. Yeah. Like every single day, say it. Literally make that a part of my day. Like a moment where my phone is down and I'm just in the mirror. I'm just talking to myself, smiling, bigging me up, because I love me. I don't give a fuck what nobody else do it. I did it this morning. It was great. Yeah.
Just speaking to what Roddy just said, I wanted to say, back to my narrative about questioning narratives, just ask yourselves as a human being, why is it that healing is embarrassing but being dysfunctional is cool? Like, because when we talk about stuff like this, it just seems like, you know, oh no, why would I do that? Why are you telling someone about that? Mind you, she said she was in the mirror by herself. And even in those moments, it can feel embarrassing, like a shame, like shame. But you're by your damn self. Like, who is making fun of you in this moment? And so, question that narrative and really flip it. There's this famous quote about like, instead of saying like, will it change? Like, well, what if it doesn't? Like, what if it doesn't fail? You know, instead of saying, oh, it's going to fail, what if it doesn't? What if this is the best way for me to be as a person right now? Yes.
Yeah, I'll keep it real short. I just wanted to thank you for your question, Adam. I think it's an incredible one. For me, I mean, this is very recent for me. Over the past 2 years, I had that moment where it was like I had to choose to live for the first time. It was like, you know, I'm just living because, you know, you're born, you didn't ask to be here. One day you wake up, you're old enough, you got to pay bills and, you know, your health insurance or whatever. And it's like, that part. But there was, I realized that all throughout my life, I was just doing things I was told to do. Being the person I felt like I had to be. But for the first time, after I went through like this really horrible breakup, I was in this very abusive relationship, and like just really unhealthy. And afterwards, my self-esteem was just shot, and I just like hated myself, and I felt like my life was over, and that, you know, I got to that dark place where it was like, yo, I could just stop here, you know, and one of the things that saved me was like having someone in my life, my sister actually, who like loved me enough, and like I was able to like receive her love. Because when you're in that dark place, it's hard to receive love sometimes. But it's like when you're in that place, I say whatever gets you out of that place, like take it. That's one of those things where like niggas in church will be like, oh, whatever gets you in church, whether you're there to find a lover or whatever. Like I think if you're like thinking about hurting yourself or ending your life, like whatever gets you out of that place is something you should entertain. And so, yeah, my sister, like actually receiving her love, and she like, you know, brought me out of that place. And then also, I didn't realize that self-harm can take so many different, it can manifest in different ways. So I'm like, oh, I'm not suicidal, I don't mutilate myself, or I don't like do all this type of stuff, but like, I was drinking crazy, I was driving drunk. You know what I'm saying? I was putting myself in situations where I may not have been wanting to jump off the cliff, but I was like inching towards that shit, you know? And so identifying the ways that I was doing that, and then actually choosing like, yo, if I want to live, then like every decision I make every day needs to be towards life and not death. So. That was a theme.
That's a word right there, man.
Listen, make some noise for the word y'all got tonight.